Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Woo Curious podcast. Your map to the mystical, your key to the sacred, and your guide back home to yourself. I'm Eileen, a writer, a spiritual coach, energy healer, and slow living witch. This podcast is your invitation to explore a world where the mundane and the sacred intertwine. It's a haven for those ready to take the first steps into the realms of magic and mystery, providing a safe space for you to embark on your own enchanted journey towards healing and self-discovery. Here, I'll unveil the whispers of the mystical, the rituals often hidden in plain sight, and I'll engage in sacred conversation intended to stir your soul and lead you back into your power. I'm all about demystifying woo and witchcraft. So, whether you're a seasoned seeker or simply woo curious, I'm so delighted you've decided to join me on this journey. Let's make magic. Hey Woo Crew, welcome back to another episode of the Woo Curious podcast. I am your host Eileen, and I am here today with a solo episode. If you're on my email list, you may already have read a little bit about what I'm going to share today. But of course, in writing, I'm always trying to keep it short enough that it's digestible, that you can find the time and the space to read it. And so I wanted to go a little bit more into depth with my experience at the Wild Roses Women's Festival by the time you're listening to this 2 weeks ago, as well as the lessons that I learned, the shifts that I felt, hopefully providing you with some takeaways as well through my experience, because we learn through stories. And so even though I'm often reluctant to share too much about me and my journey, I'm leaning in to my human design a little bit more. If you don't know much about human design, this might be a little bit gibberish, but I'm a 6/3 projector. And so the 6 line is supposed to be kind of this, wise sage line. I'm getting there. We're working towards that. But the 3 line is kind of a fuck around and find out line. It's like designed to live through trial and error and to share the wisdom gained through the messy middle. And so I'm really working on my reluctance to share too much about my mess. And this is a perfect place for me to share some of the messy middle. It feels safe. It feels cozy. I know if you're here with me, it's because something drew you to this podcast. I know if you've been here with me for a while, then it's because you are invested in the journey, in your journey, but also in my journey, because again, we are a collective. We are all interdependent and walking this path together. So the Wild Roses Women's Festival. Oh my goodness, what to say about this experience. This was the 5th year this festival has run. It's in Alberta. It's kind of more north from me. It's about an hour west of Edmonton on a farm or farmland. Anyways, we were tenting on fields that had clearly been plowed for hay or something. And it was started by a woman named Lauren LaRose. I believe that's her last name. Anyways, that's what it is on Instagram. But Lauren is the Wild Roses matriarch. And it has grown in the 5 years since she started it as a potluck in somebody's home in COVID when they just needed some community. It has grown to be the largest women's festival in Canada. 1,000 women on the land for the weekend. And what an honor and a privilege to be chosen to not only be a speaker, a presenter at this festival with a full hour to sit with women and present, but also to be a space holder. And there was no requirement for me when I was chosen to be a speaker, a presenter. There was no requirement for me to also volunteer to be a space holder. Those who volunteer for space holding get a reduced ticket price. My ticket was already free. It was included as part of being chosen as a speaker. And so there was really no quote unquote perks for me to apply to be a space holder as well. But something really it was one of those, again, coming back to human design, I'm a splenic projector, which means that I'm designed to make really quick decisions based on my intuitive hits. And I had, when I saw the email come out asking for volunteers for space holding, I had a quick intuitive hit. I want to do that too. And so I applied for that as well and was accepted. And what I realized when I was there on the land was that intuitive hit was so important for me. So for some context, I am a Leo rising. I am an extrovert in a fairly big way. I do love my alone time. I need some alone time, but I very much am an extroverted individual. I love being with people. It energizes me. It fills me up. I also am a person who has some pretty serious FOMO. And so my typical experience when I am in social situations where there's a big group of people and many activities, presentations, things to do, things to try, people to meet, is that I tend to get quite buzzy and out of my body. The only way I can really describe it is I feel like I'm, buzzing, floating, almost vibrating. And I have this energy where I want to be part of every conversation. I'll be standing with somebody or somebody's, speaking to them, and I'll be noticing that there's a conversation happening, 20 feet away or whatever, and I'll want to be over there. But then if I go over there, I'll want to be back where I was. And what happens with this energy is that I end up not being present with anybody, or with myself, or in the moment. And so then I leave these types of events often on this crazy high. Like I have more energy than you can even imagine while I'm there and shortly after. And then I crash. And that's what happened for me when I was attending She Leads back in May in Victoria. It's a big networking event that my coaches put on, and it was incredible. And I was given the opportunity to speak there as well. I spoke on the witch wound there. But when I came home, it was like I was absolutely exhausted and drained. And I don't really feel like I got to make super genuine connections with very many people. There were a few who pulled me in, and something about their energy allowed me to ground and land. But a lot of it was just that kind of buzzing around, and I was genuinely excited to meet people and happy to be creating these new connections. And I wasn't present. The reality is I really wasn't present in my body or with the people that I was connecting with in a genuine, deep way. And so going to the Wild Roses Festival as a space holder, that first morning, the space holders had a meeting at 8 a.m. on Friday morning. We all arrived on the land on Thursday evening. And I remember sitting in the tent and finding out about my 4-hour shifts. I would have 2, one on Friday, one on Saturday. And feeling a brief flickering moment of oh my gosh, 4 hours both days. I'm going to miss so much. And I had that flash of FOMO. Why did I do this? This is too much. And then it passed. And I had this sudden sense of landing in complete gratitude and presence with the women in the space holders tent with me. There were, I believe it was 8 of us chosen out of over 50 who applied. And I also felt a burgeoning excitement for being able to sit and connect deeply with the women who might need our services. And I actually said to a few of the other space holders and the woman who organized it, I usually get quite buzzy and floaty and these kinds of events. And for me, space holding, not only am I giving to the community, but I'm really tending to myself by allowing myself to simply be still and grounded and present. And so on that first day, on the Friday afternoon, I got to sit at the space holders tent and tend to the few women who came and sat with me, some for only a few minutes, some for much longer, and just be still. And I wasn't worried about what I was missing. It was a revelation to me, really, to be sitting there and not wishing I was elsewhere. And then the following day, on the Saturday, I was a roving space holder. So I got to move from workshop to workshop, spending the most time at the workshops that might be the most triggering or upsetting or, opening for people. There was some really powerful workshops being offered, presentations being offered. And again, just being able to stand on the periphery of those spaces, holding space with my presence, whether or not anyone needed me, anyone needed to approach me, or I felt called to approach anyone to just check in with them. Just being present on the edge, not needing to engage, but being able to hear the wisdom offered. It meant that a lot of the experience for me was a little bit more gentle because I wasn't immersed in these really deep, full body experiential practices, but I was still able to take on the wisdom and hear what the other presenters had to say. And I just felt so calm and present and grounded. The moment that I really noticed the difference was on Saturday night. So I had booked the sauna experience. There's a sauna and cold plunge experience by Thermoculture at this festival. And I had booked a time slot for me and my beautiful assistant, Miranda, to be in the saunas on Saturday night. I booked it for 9:15. I booked it before we had the schedule for the festival because I was like, well, okay, we're going to, maybe want to shower at this point. And there's we can shower at the saunas or bath anyways. And we're going to be tired at this point and it'll just be a really nice way to wrap. And I booked it late because I figured that everything would be done. Everything would be wrapped up. Little did I know that the dance would be scheduled to start at 9 on Saturday night. And now, of course, we could have gone to the sauna and then gone to the dance afterwards. However, I was also scheduled to speak at 8 a.m. the next morning. I had to laugh a little bit when I saw that they'd scheduled the talk on rest at 8 a.m. the morning after a dance that was scheduled to go till 1 a.m. It's like, okay, but I think a lot of people might still want to be sleeping, and I really encourage that. And in fact, I had several messages from people afterwards saying, I'm so sorry, I really wanted to be at your talk, but I was still asleep. So trying to mitigate a little bit of disappointment around that and just congratulating them for listening to their bodies. They got the gist of it. However, there was a storm. And so initially the dance was canceled or postponed. There was thunder, there was lightning. We were in the sauna and I was so delighted by the experience of being in the sauna in the storm. That was wild and wonderful and the perfect place to be. It was so nice to be really, truly warm right before thinking about bed because the other nights it had been chilly in the evenings and the mornings. It was actually quite cold, except for during the day. It was quite chilly down to probably 11 or 12 degrees Celsius, windy, rainy, just not super pleasant. And so I was feeling good in my body. The dance, to our knowledge at that point, had just been canceled because of the thunder and lightning. Obviously, you can't be running big speaker sound systems when there's lightning happening. And so I was like, all right, we're going back. We're going to bed. It's perfect. I'm not missing anything. And then as we walked from the saunas to our tent, the music started up. The weather had cleared and the party was a go. And I remember hearing it, and my only thought was, well, that's going to make it a little harder to sleep. I had no pang of FOMO, no pull of oh, I'm missing. And I love dancing. So, if I hadn't had my talk the next morning, I probably would have been yeah, no, I'm going to go do that. But because my talk was the next morning, I didn't have that sense of missing out. I just felt so calm and grounded and peaceful and happy with my decision to go back to my tent and get the rest that I needed. And this might not, for those of you who don't experience FOMO, this might not seem like such a revelation or a crazy, incredible occurrence, but for me, this was profound. And I took with it from the weekend this sense of, on Monday morning when we got home, rather than feeling absolutely wiped out and exhausted, I felt energized. I wasn't ready to dip back into work. I felt like I might be. And then I realized by the end of Tuesday, when I had not done anything for my business, that I did actually still need that integration time. But I didn't feel depleted. I didn't feel drained. I felt calm and present and confident and like filled up in a way that those other social situations never left me feeling filled up. Usually I get that like social hangover almost of like, whoa, that was a lot. And now I'm exhausted. And also a bit of like, but I still want to be with all the people. And now that's gone and I feel lonely. And this time it was none of those things. So I didn't overextend myself. I allowed myself to be present with myself, with the land, with the people who I did connect with. I got to make really genuine, deep connections with many women, and it was so rewarding. It felt in a lot of ways like a weekend of embodying what it is that I teach. And I've shared this before on this podcast many a time. I believe that many of us teach what we need to practice ourselves. And maybe we're a few steps further ahead from the people that we are teaching, but it's still something that we're genuinely needing and working on. And this was one of those big moments where I feel like I was like, oh, I'm landing in some of my teachings in a real lasting way. And it feels so cool to do. And let's think about how long this journey has been already, right? I want to bring this around to how this story may support you in your own personal growth. Since beginning to speak about rest and presence, I have been to countless social engagements where I have felt buzzy and distracted and not able to focus. And like my own birthday was one of them. I was flitting around the room the whole time, wanting to make sure that everybody felt tended to at my birthday. So much so that I was all worried if people were having fun, if I was spending enough time with everybody who came. And by the end of it, I really don't feel like I got to actually enjoy my birthday at all. And so, even as recently as a few months ago, that was still my reality when I was in social settings. And so I've been practicing rest and presence and grounding and all of these beautiful things. And there were still situations in my life that I was really bad at embodying those practices. Some places when I'm holding ceremony, I'm really good at being present and grounded, but not in those other circumstances, those social kind of settings. And so just to say that if you are beginning to practice being present to the magic around you, being grounded and in your body, taking the time to rest without feeling guilty or without feeling like you're missing out on life, it takes time, right? It doesn't have to happen all at once. It takes practice. It takes doing it over and over. It takes messing it up and doing it wrong. So a little tool for you to move with in your days, if you, like me, get really buzzy in social situations, is to just check in with yourself and ask, where am I right now? Am I here? Am I in 10,000 different places? Taking some breaths, allowing that tool that's always with you to ground you back into your body, to ground you back into presence. You can use the beautiful technique of, noticing 5 things you can see, a few things you can hear or smell, or taste, touch, right? Checking in with your senses. They can be a really powerful way to ground you in the moment. And the other piece of this story that I hope will land or resonate or give you some permission here is to trust your intuition and your body. My intuition had me sign up to hold space, and that kept me so much more grounded throughout the weekend. It allowed for these other revelations and transformations to occur. My intuition possibly had me sign up for the spa at the same time the dance was going to be happening, before I knew the schedule, before I knew there was a dance or that I'd be speaking the following morning. The listening to my intuition and letting her be right gave me peace when the music started up and I was crawling into my tent. I was so happy to be warm and cozy and not out in a muddy field. Like, so happy. And if I hadn't been able to soften into that inner knowing and inner wisdom, I wouldn't have been. I would have been upset and feeling like I was missing things. So just to remember that your intuition will never lead you astray. She knows what you need. She knows what your body needs. And the more you can practice listening to those whispers and leaning into them and trusting them and letting yourself be right, the more grounded and present and easeful life is going to feel. And I think this lesson is really perfect for summer. We are well into July at this point. It is busy. It is bright. There are lots of plans. There's travel, there's camping, there's barbecues, there's parties, there's vacation. There's so much that we cram into summer, especially those of us the further north we are. If you're listening to this in the southern states, you might be like, I don't know, summer is busy and fun, but it's warm all year round. And so we have barbecues all year round. But where I am, we get a couple short months of warm enough to be outside weather, and we really take advantage of it. But it can leave us feeling fried sometimes and overdoing it and pushing too far. And to some extent, that's what summer is for. You have to balance that need for rest with the need for connection and community and experience. And if you are feeling a little bit too buzzy, or perhaps feeling a little bit stuck, or perhaps anything's going on in your world where you could use a little bit of TLC and support, that's what the Summer Healing Special is for. This special I ran last year as well, and it was such a beautiful way to be able to support you without you having to add anything else to your busy schedule. So the way that I do my energy healings is that they're completely remote. So you choose the day of the week. We usually do Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I drop into your energy while you go about your day and send you over a voice note with my findings. So I'll share with you what comes through, what I've seen, any kind of work that I do, any messages that I receive from guides that might be present, and any homework, follow-up practices that are going to support you in feeling more grounded and present and integrated and free this summer. If that feels like something that would be supportive for you, please reach out. I'm going to have a direct link below to sign up if you want to. It's going to take you straight to a payment link. And if and when you click that link, I will be reaching out by email afterwards to set up our voice note channel. So I send these healings over by voice note. I usually use WhatsApp. I'll set that up. I'll ask if there's anything specific you're wanting work on, because we can certainly go in and target something specific. If there is something you are stuck on, healing, grieving, processing, anything, you can bring that in, or we can go in completely intuitively and just see what comes up. So I'll leave that link below. I will also encourage you to reach out if you have questions about this to me on Instagram at @IamEileenMarch, or send me an email, eileen@myluminouslife.ca. Happy to hop on a quick call as well and just answer any questions you might have about this offer and about how it might support you. You can choose to jump in for 1 month, for 2 months, for 3 months, and you don't have to commit to more than 1 month to begin with. But bi-weekly healings for the summer, let me know if you'd like them, or grab yourself one below. There are limited spaces available because I have limited capacity, just like everyone. So please don't hesitate if you're feeling the pull. I'd be so delighted to be able to support you in this way. All right, Woo Crew, that is all for this week. I, as always, would love to hear from you if you're watching on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, take a moment to tap that 5-star. If you're on Apple, leaving a review helps so much. You don't even know how much I appreciate those reviews when they come in. So if you can take a moment to do any of those 3 things, I would be ever so grateful. And I will, of course, be back here with you next week. Bye for now.